Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand is the story of Louis Zamperini, a young man who competed as a runner in the 1936 Olympics. During World War II, he crashed his plane in the Pacific. The world presumed him to be dead. But was he?
And now, Seabiscuit by Laura Hillenbrand. Now, before I start, I would like to point out that my brother, Unbroken, was written 9 whole years after me, so I have the advantage of being older. But aside from that, on to a lovely summary of me. Set in the 1930s during the Great Depression, this book tells the remarkable story of the racehorse Seabiscuit, the individuals who shared his life, and the nation who he inspired. This book starts off with introductions of Charles Howard, Tom Smith, Red Pollard, and George Wolfe, who would later become Seabiscuit's owner, trainer, and jockeys, respectively, and of Seabiscuit himself. But after a few chapters of this, the author launches into the action of the book. As a 3-year-old colt, Seabiscuit was bought by a noteworthy breeder for a fairly low price and went through some hard times. He was small, weedy, with abnormally bent legs and an odd egg-beater gait when running. He lacked any of the beauty or grace of his grandsire Manowar, and he showed little promise of ever becoming much of a racehorse. Through much rough handling and many lost races, he was sold to a man named Charles Howard, and his true career began. His new trainer, Tom Smith, saw promise in him and worked to heal the broken horse, both physically and emotionally. Seabiscuit, or as he was effectively called, the Biscuit, needed no crop to urge him on, and after a few significant wins, he was entered into a prestigious race called the Santa Anita Handicap. But to the east, far from the Biscuit's winning turf, another horse was racing, raging, and winning. His name was War Admiral, and he too was a descendant of the great man of war. War Admiral had won the Triple Crown earlier, and the East claimed he was unbeatable during a time when rivalries in sports were drawn out to the extreme in order to take the public's mind off the current depression. Everybody began to choose sides. Seabiscuit or War Admiral?
You should read me. I'm much better than Seabiscuit. Listen to my introduction and you'll agree. All he could see in every direction was water. It was late June 1943. Somewhere on the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Army Air Force's bombardier and Olympic runner Louis Zamperini lay across a small raft drifting westward. Slumped alongside him was a sergeant, one of his plane's gunners. On a separate raft, tethered to the first, lay another crewman, a gash zigzagging across his forehead. Their bodies, burned by the sun and stained by the raft's dye, had withered down to skeletons, sharks gliding in lazy loops around them, dragging their backs along the raft, waiting. The men had been adrift for 27 days. Borne by an equatorial current, they had floated at least 1,000 miles, deep into Japanese-controlled waters. The rafts were beginning to deteriorate into jelly and gave off a sour, burning odor. The men's bodies were pocked with salt sores, and their lips were so swollen that they pressed into their nostrils and shins. They spent their days with their eyes fixed on the sky, singing White Christmas, muttering about food. No one was even looking for them anymore. They were alone on 64 million square miles of ocean. A month earlier, 26-year-old Zamperini had been one of the greatest runners in the world, expected to be the first to break the 4-minute mile, one of the most celebrated barriers in sport. Now his Olympic body had wasted to less than 100 pounds, and his famous legs could no longer lift him. Almost everyone outside of his family had given him up for dead. On that morning of the 27th day, the men heard a distant, deep strumming. Every airman knew that sound. Pistons. Their eyes caught a glint in the sky. A plane, high overhead. Zamperini fired 2 flares and shook powdered dye into the water, enveloping the rafts in a circle of vivid orange. The plane kept going, slowly disappearing. The men sagged. Then the sound returned, and the plane came back into view. The crew had seen them. With their arms shrunken to little more than bone and yellowed skin, the castaways waved and shouted, their voices thin from thirst. The plane dropped low and swept alongside the rafts. Zamperini saw the profiles of the crewmen, dark against bright blueness. There was a terrific roaring sound. The water and the rafts themselves seemed to boil. It was machine gun fire. This was not an American rescue plane. It was a Japanese bomber. The men pitched themselves into the water and hung together under the rafts, cringing as bullets punched through rubber and sliced effervescent lines in the water around their faces. The firing blazed on, then sputtered out as the bomber overshot them. The men dragged themselves onto the raft that was still mostly inflated. The bomber banked sideways, circling toward them again. As it leveled off, Zamperini could see the muzzles of the machine guns, aimed directly at them. Zamperini looked toward his crewmates. They were too weak to go back in the water. As they lay down on the floor of the raft, hands over their heads, Zamperini splashed overboard alone. Somewhere beneath him, the sharks were done waiting. They bent their bodies in the water and swam toward the man under the raft. Ding, ding, ding!
Number 1, accuracy. Whether you like horses or not, there is no denying that this author knows them well. As an equestrian myself, I personally enjoyed all the horse facts and descriptions, detailed racing scenes, and attention to the details of the horses' backgrounds. However, they are still explained in an easy way which allows even non-horsey people to understand and grasp what is going on. Number 2, pacing. The pacing is excellent, with a delicate balance between the action and the character/plot building. Number 3, characters. The characters are superbly done, with interesting and creative descriptions, real personalities, dialogue, and struggles. While it is clear that Laura Hillenbrand included a remarkably detailed amount of research, she also takes a certain artistic license with the characters, and this makes them all the more compelling to read about. Number 4, detail. Very in-depth descriptions, backstories, and research on the subjects of this book. From Tom Smith's words to the press, to the color of War Admiral's blanket, no detail is too small or too insignificant to be added in. Number 5, view. This book presents the many aspects of horse racing, as well as quietly addressing its dark side and the extreme risk to both jockeys and horses. As anyone who knows much about racing will know, it takes quite a toll on its participants, and many may not survive its brutal requirements. Number 6, tension. The tension build-up is great, and will leave any readers hastily turning the pages to see what will happen next. Number 7, popularity. Seabiscuit was the bestseller the year it came out, which was 2001. It was later made into a movie in 2003. The movie was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Number 8, equine doppelgangers. Seabiscuit actually had a brother, uninspiringly named Grog, who was born around the same time as him. The two horses looked exactly the same, and even people who knew them both had a hard time telling them apart. Though they were separated for a while, Seabiscuit's new owners eventually found him at a low-stakes claiming race and bought him on the off chance that he might have some of Seabiscuit's potential. He didn't, but Seabiscuit's trainer soon discovered that the public couldn't differentiate between Grog and his brother either. So, whenever someone would show up asking to pet or hold or even sit on the famous racehorse, he would simply show them to Grog, and the person would leave boasting about how they had sat on Seabiscuit's back. He even went so far as entering Grog into insignificant races under Seabiscuit's name, just to throw people off and ensure that Seabiscuit was not assigned back-breaking extra weights during important races. Number 9, horses. No matter what way you look at it, Seabiscuit is awesome. Thoroughbreds like the one in this book have been known to reach speeds of 44 miles per hour, able to easily run a quarter mile in less than 20 seconds. Although he was known for his unusually sweet attitude, Seabiscuit loved racing against and beating other horses, and in races he would even slow down to let the others think they were catching up before he dashed off again. However, he isn't the only cool horse in the book. War Admiral, Seabiscuit's biggest rival, was also pretty much his opposite. He was tall, lean, graceful, and looked the part of a legendary racehorse. He was also vicious. Really vicious. He was known for savaging grooms, jockeys, and even fellow racehorses. Before the long-awaited match race between himself and Seabiscuit, the two rivals were taken to a park for a photo shoot. Seabiscuit stood perfectly still for a few hours, standing with his eyes closed and looking as if he'd fallen asleep. War Admiral, on the other hand, kicked and reared and somehow ended up throwing his saddle off. These are a few of the pictures taken. It seemed pretty much inevitable that these two horses meet. War Admiral fans over in the East didn't think Seabiscuit had a chance in the world. The Biscuits fans in the West, however, believed that their horse would come out on top and started the popular chant, "Bring on War Admiral," whenever Seabiscuit would race. War Admiral had some anger management issues, but he managed to conveniently channel these into unbeatable speed. Is he unbeatable, or does Seabiscuit have a chance? I do. He doesn't. Fairnightus is also an interesting, though highly underrated character. She was originally one of Seabiscuit's opponents, and during a particularly tense race, she lost to him by an incredibly small amount. She was later bought by Charles Howard, who entered her in more races. She also served as a workout partner for the Biscuit, though since she was fast enough to keep up with him and never got disheartened even after he kept winning. During one fateful race, she fell and became paralyzed, and it was assumed that she would die. But miraculously, nearly a year later, she stepped back out onto the track fully recovered and went on to continue racing. Many years later, she and the Biscuit had several foals, the most noteworthy of which was a stallion named Phantomsy. The last horse discussed here was not actually a racehorse. He was a gentle, sweet-tempered, tolerant horse by the name of Pumpkin, who was originally a ranch horse, and who had seen just about everything there was to see in the world. During Seabiscuit's early years with Charles Howard, he was the first living being whom Seabiscuit was able to trust, and the two horses later became lifelong friends. He would accompany Seabiscuit out onto the track before races, keeping him calm, and would travel with the famous racehorse across the country whenever the Biscuit was called upon to run in other states. The two always stayed in the same stall, and Seabiscuit would become extremely agitated if Pumpkin wasn't nearby. The two were friends for most of Seabiscuit's life, right until the end. Who should read this book? People who like horses, obviously. Anyone curious about thoroughbred racing, its ups and downs, and the complicated world behind it. Anyone interested in the 1930s, the Great Depression, or really just history in general. Anybody who appreciates nonfiction books which are portrayed in an interesting way with storyline and dialogue, rather than just a textbook. Anyone over 12. This may seem like just a harmless book about horses, but it also has some material suitable for more mature readers. There is some slight sexual content, as well as graphic descriptions of injuries, horse and human deaths, and some generally harsh material.
There you go. What more could you want? I'm exciting. I'm gritty. Did I mention the bread loaf-sized testicles? Also, I have sharks. Oh, and very educational. Laura certainly did her research. I have 100 pages of notes. If you read me, you'll learn all about World War II, running, and even how to eat a shark. The lip was the best part. And we're not boring. I read like a story, not a textbook or your typical educational reading material. So if you like adventure stories, sharks, or are curious about World War II, you should definitely read me. Also, if you don't read me, my sharks will come find you and kill you in the most gruesome manner.
His rough beginning to his ride to fame, to his famous battle with the War Admiral, Seabiscuit by Laura Hillenbrand is compelling and detailed in every possible way, and is sure to leave readers cheering on Seabiscuit just as many fans did so long ago. Well, that's just scratching the surface of my amazing qualities. Now, unlike my little brother Unbroken, I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to have War Admiral come and eat you if you don't read me. But do give me a chance, rather than spend your time reading yet another survival story in which people spend their time floating around and staring at the sky, and whose only defining feature seems to be sharks. Please vote Seabiscuit for the remarkable true story of an impossible horse who overcame impossible odds and went on to give heart to a struggling nation. Also, we have cool art to advertise.